Emily, you're going to take us off to China. You've been watching what's been happening in the country closely, and the latest crypto news to come out is new published guidelines that coin NFTs as a little bit riskier than they were coined before, and are warning against accurately punishable crimes. Why don't you unpack what's going on there with NFTs?
Sure. So as you said, these are guidelines. These isn't policy. It's not a law. It's just kind of like a discussion among China's top legal agency. And, it's warning of some of the speculation and hype and financialization of NFTs. But actually, I think you could argue that this document is not necessarily a bad development because, as we see all over the world, when there are some official bodies that are at least talking about crypto, it shows that they're not going to ban it, right? So, China is talking about NFTs. It's talking about the risks. I think you could somewhere read into it that there are also opportunities. They're talking about copyright. So I think it's actually not a bad thing. It's an open conversation about NFTs, and it signals that some sort of acknowledgement that NFTs are here and they're not going to disappear and that we need to take them seriously. So I don't think it's actually a negative development for NFTs in China.
So, Emily, I just kind of want to get this straight because is this really kind of saying NFTs are okay, or is it a warning to NFT holders and maybe some people with some influence saying, hey, this might be banned soon. So why don't you get out now because it smells like crypto and we're not going to be looking nicely on this anymore. You think it's the former, correct?
I don't think it's a warning to NFT holders that it's going to be banned soon. Remember, China has a very specific attitude towards NFTs in general. Mostly, they're not even called NFTs. They're called digital collectibles. And Chinese digital collectible platforms have like a very different world in which you can't really, trade them or buy and sell them. You can sort of buy them and then you can hold them. So there's already a lot of restrictions on what you can do. And it's well known that China in general is wary of crypto speculation and embraces certain aspects of blockchain technology, but being very publicly wary of others. So this document is just very much in keeping with China's general worldview. I wouldn't say it's like a new thing. But what's new about it is just like the detailed conversation about NFTs. And again, the admission that they're just here and that they need to be taken seriously.
Emily, what does this story mean for the Chinese tech companies? Tencent launched this NFT project last year. They wound it back. They're not selling NFTs anymore. Ant Group has had some back and forth with NFTs as well. Does this mean anything for the big tech Chinese giants?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the Tencent thing was a little bit mysterious. We talked about it on the show when it happened. We don't really know what that was about, if that was something specifically to do with Tencent's business or if it was some sort of policy thing or something else. I mean, Tencent in general can be a very mysterious company. So we don't really have the details about why Tencent stopped that. And it doesn't seem to be an overall policy thing because if it was, it would affect other platforms as well. And this was really a Tencent specific issue. But yeah, I mean, in general, one thing that's interesting just looking at the current Chinese digital collectible platforms is that even though the Chinese NFT market is quite separate from the rest of the world and sort of follows its own logic, it does seem to be following this larger trend of just an overall chill in the NFT market. And you're just not seeing like the same kind of excitement in sales that we saw before. It used to be like Chinese NFTs would be snapped up in like that. And you're seeing definitely like a slower, cooler market. And that's really, I think, what's affecting the platforms the most.
All right, Emily. And lastly, what do you think this means for China in a global context? So does this have any implication on how China does business with the rest of the world when it comes to NFTs? I know there were some international partnerships in the works earlier this year.
Well, I do think that, again, China has had China's NFT market, or again, digital collectible market, which is sort of a slightly different term, is very separate from what's going on like OpenSea. So it's already operating in a slightly separate universe. But I do think having these larger conversations about just like NFTs and copyright and protections does bring China into more of a global conversation because that conversation is happening all over the world.
Emily, thank you so much. I love hearing the global perspective from you every time we do these segments.